Okay, go ahead, Professor.
This is really an exciting time, Philippe. What I'm getting back, my feedback about the Kemetic Wisdom School, and the things that the community is telling me about the impact that each of the adepts are having. Whether it's savvy Sasha Madeline with her, I mean, she created a journal. Like I told you, Sasha was a prolific writer from a child, prolific writer. She'd write everything down. She carried pen and paper with her everywhere she went, and just took notes of things, on the bus, and I'd be looking at it. I'd say, wow, this is really something. And a reader, she would read books, 700 pages,
Mm.
and then after she finished it, she'd get so upset she'd read it again. Just the excitement of reading. So that what she is doing economically, she and I had a conversation yesterday about her program,
Hmm.
but she developed a journal for people to be able to get at a nominal price because she understood that her method of learning might be someone else's method of learning, and you need to have a journal. And it's important to write things down so that people are telling me that idea of having a journal, that idea of what cryptocurrency really is.
Hmm.
And that's the cornerstone to what I tell Sasha about cryptocurrency. I liken it to the Honorable Noble Drew Ali and Elijah Muhammad, who during their time, their greatest contribution to us as an African people is they broke the stranglehold that Christianity had on the minds of African people.
Hmm.
Whether or not Islam was for them or not, what they did was they offered the African mind another way of looking at spirituality.
Hmm.
And that is the importance of cryptocurrency. People who are going to get on thinking they're making millions of dollars, that's not the purpose of it. It's about being disruptive,
Hmm.
breaking the stranglehold that this system has on your mind, to be able to know there's another way of doing it. Sister Nzinga, Dalila, and Onaje Muid in counseling, offering the community another way of looking at the world. And you can go throughout all the other adepts, and I could go through the adepts, such as our brother Patar with his calendar,
Hmm.
teaching us what time it is, looking at the visuals of what time it actually is, to understand what this calendar that we're dealing with. The Gregorian calendar is an agricultural calendar. It was used by Africans for agricultural purposes, but their cosmic experience was not this calendar that we're using.
Hmm.
To understand what time it is not this calendar.
Hmm.
It was another larger calendar. And so it becomes important that what Ptah did was he superimposed calendars on top of calendars, just keep our mind and set, okay, this day would be what it is Gregorian, but this is what an African cosmic calendar looks like.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
Philippe, we could go through all of the adepts and what
Yeah.
they offer.
Well, the great elder Dr. Leonard Jeffries.
Absolutely. What he's offering is just years. This brother has been said to know French West Africa and the French Caribbean better than French West Africans and French Caribbeans.
Yes, he does.
That his nature of the fluency of the French
He
language.
translated Sheikh Anta Diop's Civilization and Barbarism. He
Exactly.
translated it.
That's the first one that I saw was in the book Egypt Revisited, was his translation of Pharaonic philosophy that did not come out for a decade, maybe give or take later than when we were able to see it because it was only in French.
Wow.
Yalenge, Dr. Yalenge was the one that interpreted his larger pieces of work, but Dr. Jeffries, because of the nature of the importance of getting this information out, did it. James Smalls, the spiritualist, the brother that brings us into our African spirituality. There are so many, and then Dr. Wade Nobles, the educational psychologist. I mean, I could go to the list of all the scholars that we have the opportunity, and, things happen. And so now it's important for us to look at and draw back. Now that it's out there, how do we get it out? And study groups need to be formed, but those study groups need to understand that the Kemetic Wisdom School operates as a business.
Absolutely.
And that the classes need to be organized and need to be organized through you.
Mm-hmm.
And that if someone would like to start a study group, which I'm all for, that's how it gets out. that the affiliate program from a business perspective allows the person that wants to create the study group to be able to bring people on board. And at the same time, financially, they can build up their study group. That their study group can now do certain things that would assist that study group in being able to widen its group of people. But it has to be organized because the computer world demands order and arrangement.
Absolutely.
We're in cyberspace. We're in a place that things can just go in any direction. And I'm just hoping that as we develop this Kemetic Wisdom School, that those that would like to, hey, I like this idea. I've got about 20 people. Well, sign those 20 people up for the Kemetic Wisdom School, and then allow them as part of the Kemetic Wisdom School, then start a study group that discusses some of the things that they're learning, because a person might be in their home alone studying. Okay, I formed study groups in the educational system, so I know the power of a study group. There was a brother out in California that went to one of the colleges, and I'm not sure which one it is. I want to say one thing, but I don't know, so I don't want to be held in error for what I'm saying. But he noticed that African American and Hispanic American students didn't do as well as the Asian and European American students. So he decided to do his PhD in what caused this gap. In his research, he saw that the African American and Hispanic American students were studying sometimes longer than the European and the Asian students. So he began to study the European and Asian students in study halls, in their dormitories, in the cafeterias. And what he came to realize is that the European American and the Asian American students studied in groups, whereas the African American and the Hispanic American students studied by themselves. And to long story short, his PhD exposed the fact that when he arranged in his isolated groups, in his study, African American and Hispanic American students studying in groups, they began to do better academically. Because what further research did, and the way I developed study groups amongst children, is the fact that if you bring 5 people together in a group, there's a chance that somebody knows the answer to everything that's going to be asked. You're going to have your mathematician. You're going to have your linguistic. Remember the multiple intelligences? Okay, if you look at those multiple intelligences, you're going to have someone that's very good in sports. You're going to have somebody that, and some of them may be good in in more than one area, but the idea of a study group is for everybody to bring their talent to the group in order to take out the essence of what you're studying. So the Kemetic Wisdom School, and it might be something that we arrange as we go down the line as it relates to how to form study groups. That if in our communities, they were to create study groups out of the Kemetic Wisdom School. But the point that I'm making is that everybody has to be part of the Kemetic Wisdom School. They can be part of the study group, but everybody has to be a part of the Kemetic Wisdom School, because other than that, it's going to get out there and there are going to be problems.
Absolutely.
Because there are going to be certain situations that can't be answered. And then pretty soon, it's going to be people who don't know the answer leading groups that will not find the answer. But if they are somehow attached to the Kemetic Wisdom School and they have their study group, that would allow, for instance, let's say that let me use myself as an example. Let's say somebody saw something on the multiple intelligences piece. And let's say that there is a study group in the Midwest that has 50 people. And let's say they decide in their study group to bring that person in. That person should come in through you. Okay? So that the study group attaches itself to the Kemetic Wisdom School and you facilitate a question and answer period for that study group. But it can't be detached.
Right.
And everywhere I study Kemetic knowledge and wisdom, from the Kushites as they pushed up north, what you see is there is a coming together of settlements, of communities, even in West Africa, in Ouagadougou. You see the coming together of groups, not the splitting apart of groups. The groups are already split. What you see is the power comes when they come together. And the Kemetic Wisdom School has to be that type of model.
Absolutely.
We can model ourselves after our ancestors.
Sure.
And their success.
As we
but
should.
It can't be from a centerpiece and then split out. It has to always come back to that group that is responsible for the information that's going out there in the first place, so that the group, yourself in particular, as the facilitator of the Kemetic Wisdom School, has the ability to monitor, because then you can make things better as you go along and see how things work. But if something's happening isolated from you, you don't know what's going on. And so all of a sudden now you have something going back and forth. Organization is the key to this.
Absolutely.
Not to mention, of course, that from a financial perspective, if we're going to look at business, and if we're looking at the Kemetic Wisdom School as a business, that it is in the best interest of those who would like to create the study group to ensure that every member of their study group is a member of the Kemetic Wisdom School for their own financial and then for their own academic reasons. If you operate in isolation, it's not going to work.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that, Professor. Oh, go ahead. No, if you had more.
No, I was just going to say, this is a phenomenal time to start now with this idea and this concept to bring groups in, to promote the idea of study groups. But the study groups have to be members of the Kemetic Wisdom School.
Right. And if you want to be affiliate, you can be an affiliate and bring those people in, and then you can have a study group all day long. And then we'll set some rules and some boundaries and some guidelines for you on terms of how to do that, because we've got people all over the world who are part of the Kemetic Wisdom School that are trying to share this with the world, and rightfully so. We just want to keep it organized so everybody's on the same page and same script, and that you have a support group from the home base, if you will.
That's right. Because if somebody were to call me, I would have to be concerned about being a part of something outside of the Kemetic Wisdom School. And any of the adepts would probably also question that, because it would create it would create an academic problem because of the nature of getting the information to the community. So let's do this properly as we expand and develop this concept. It's a win-win situation for everybody involved. The old way is over. That way is over. You know, because I personally know what it's like to have my stuff taken. I've had people that have bookstores that have told me that they make a living on selling some of my DVDs. As I've told you, I've had people call me and complain and ask me, you know, that the tape that they bought didn't work right. And I said, but did you buy it from me? I mean, did you personally get in contact with me, Kaba Hiawatha Kamene? And they say no. And I said, but I have no control over that. I said, that might be me on the DVD, but I
can't control the bootleg. Yeah, I have no control over the bootleg.
I can't control that.
Yeah.
And what organizations do all around, because I've seen a number of them, is that I know where that DVD was filmed, and I know who filmed it. There are people who will come over and they will literally put their logo on that DVD and sell that DVD as if they generated it.
Wow.
And then when I asked them how much it was the 3-part series on the Moors. And they had purchased one of them. And I said, well, let me ask you this. How much you paid? They said, we paid $35. I said, $35? I said, you could have bought all 3 parts from me for $30.
Wow.
You know, so you kind of lost out on this. But this is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets out of control,
Mm-hmm.
and then it gets watered down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have got to encourage the movement of this information across the globe, but it has to be organized. It has to be arranged in a way that it's a win-win situation for everybody. And it's not like people are questioning the integrity
Mm-hmm.
of the people involved, whether not just the Kemetic Wisdom School, but the people who are actually doing these study groups, who I believe have the best interests of the community at heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it is very important. And the price of the Kemetic Wisdom School is at a point where, like I say, man, if you have a problem spending $15 a month on information, the acquisition of culture and information is not your major problem.
Right.
There's a much bigger problem if you can't afford $15
Right.
for this information a month. Because like I say, the First World Alliance that was in existence back in the the late 1970s, that went up to the mid 2000s, it cost a certain amount of money to get in. As it relates to transportation, it took a certain amount of money to get there. We're talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s, talking about 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It costs less to be a part of the Kemetic Wisdom School.
Exactly.
And in certain ways, you get more because you get the downloads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
First World Alliance, you got the presentation. If you wanted to purchase the audio cassette, you could. It was a phenomenal idea, a phenomenal plan. For its time, it worked very, very well. That's my golden age.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But what I am saying is that today, with the Kemetic Wisdom School, you spend less
And get
per
more.
month for the Kemetic Wisdom School than what we paid back 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So financially, it is a good deal all the way around. The Kemetic Wisdom School is a win-win situation for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's something that we have to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do right. It is Ujamaa,
Mm-hmm.
cooperative economics at its best.
Absolutely.
It's one of the finest examples of cooperative economics. The fourth day of Kwanzaa, Ujamaa. And it's time for us to respect this and to move with this and to open ourselves up to another way of thinking, that we all have to work together now and make the Kemetic Wisdom School come into all of our homes.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's on our computers, it can even come on a bus on your phone.
That's right.
Wherever you is, it is.
I love it.
So I say, hey, let's get this together and let's keep on keeping on, because it ain't over till we win. And the Kemetic Wisdom School is an idea whose time has come.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Professor.
Oh, anytime, brother, man. We got to get this done.
Absolutely. Hotep.
Hotep.